Okay, dear friends, good evening to everyone and welcome to the program. Okay, let me answer the first question which I asked you. What are systematic activities? Systematic activities are those where the probability of success is maximum. This is the definition which you should remember and you should give. So I have answered the first one. The probability of success is maximum. Yes, Gaurav, this is all right. So systematic activities are those where the probability of success is maximum, or activities carried out systematically means where the probability of success is maximum. It cannot never be 100%, but it has to be maximum. I have explained you. Now, can you tell me the sequence in which the variable, title, and objective? One participant has given the answer and that is a correct answer. Any other participant like to tell me the answer? Please go ahead. Please see, when I will write the title, I have to mention the name of the variable in the title. Without the variable name in the title will not be appropriate, because from the title only you come to know on which variable you want to conduct a research, or the researcher has conducted research related to which variable. So you have to select the variable first. And once you have selected the variable, then you must write the title. Why? Because your title is always narrow. From one title, you can write more than one objective. So without writing the title, you will not be able to write objectives. And your objectives must be pinpointed. More pinpointed are your objectives, the better it is. Why? Because you will know what to do next. And if your objectives are not pinpointed, then you will not be able to really know what to do next. So this is the sequence in which you should have the variable, title, and objective. Now tell me, should I give you all the steps today and then start with the first step? Or should I complete the first step details today and then I go to the next step? Because I plan to give you the steps in short. So if you want the detail of the first step, I can go ahead with it. No problem at all. All right. So let me give you all steps. Now, in the first step, the last is objective or research questions. Now, once you have the objective or you have the research question, then the next step is formulation of hypothesis. Now, what is a hypothesis? Hypothesis is the tentative solution of the problem. It is not the final solution, it is the tentative solution. This is important. So you should understand this particular point. Another definition is hypothesis is the intelligent guess about the solution of the problem. It is not a guess, it is the intelligent guess. And then the third definition is hypothesis is the conjectural statement about the relationship between variables. So it is conjecture, means tentative. So it's not final. Now, see, many a times when we are not well and we go to the doctor and doctor examines us, and after examining, the doctor may tell to the patient that most probably you are suffering from this problem, this disease, or this is the problem. Now he is saying this most probably on the basis of his experience and his understanding of the medical science, because he has already completed his PG or might be only MBBS, whatever it is. So once he looks at the patient, that's a tentative solution. Now, why he wants that now the doctor may also say that since doctor is saying most probably you are suffering from this, you start taking this medicine, and meanwhile you go to the pathology lab and get your blood test done or your stool test done or this test done or MRI, whatever it is. Now, why doctor wants the pathology report? So, he wants the pathology report in order to be sure, in order to be certain that this patient is having this problem. Now, in medical science, you can test your ideas through the pathology lab. In science also, they have the science lab, but in education, in social science, we do not have lab. So how do we test? I'll tell you that. Now, suppose from your college, you go home and you look at the door and you find the lock is not there. Now, what comes to your mind as soon as you see that lock is not there on the door and there is a latch which is there, it is closed, but lock is not there? I think as soon as you look at it, the points that can come to your mind is that someone has come before you, another one family member has come and might have opened the door. Another can be the person who went at the last, he forgot to lock the door. Another can be somebody has broken the lock, etc. Now, these are the tentative solutions that comes to the mind of the person. Now you open the latch, you go inside, you find everything is systematic as it is. So therefore, the one point that came to your mind that somebody has entered and might have be the theft. Now, once you find everything is fine, that means theft has not taken place. Now, after 5 minutes, another family member comes and he asks, oh, I came before you. So now you have a information that justifies that the family member has come before you and he or she has opened the door. So without evidences, you will not be able to test your hypothesis. Now it is the intelligent guess. You know, when you were student and during examination time, what you were doing, you might be looking to the last 4-5 years question paper and might be analyzing and trying to find out from which unit and which portion of the unit this time the question is likely to come. Now this you are able to do because you have last 5 years, 4 years question paper. If that would not have been there, then it would not have been possible for you to do the intelligent guess. Intelligent means there has to be a base. Guess means without a base. Okay, so that means in social science, we test the hypothesis, and for testing we need a statistical technique. And if you have to use the statistical technique, you must use the quantitative data. Now, please listen carefully. If you have collected quantitative data, which can be analyzed with the help of the statistical technique, then you can test the hypothesis and you should formulate the hypothesis. I repeat, if you have a variable for which you can have the quantitative data, then it can be analyzed with the help of a statistical technique, and you can test the hypothesis and you must formulate the hypothesis. But if you have the qualitative data which cannot be analyzed with the help of a statistical technique, then you cannot test the hypothesis and you should not formulate the hypothesis. I repeat, if you have the qualitative data which cannot be analyzed with the help of a statistical technique, then you cannot test the hypothesis, then you should not formulate the hypothesis. But if you have collected the qualitative data which can be analyzed with the help of which can be converted into quantitative data. For example, you know, in the examination, when we write our answer is qualitative. And the teacher, the examiner, he will give marks. So when he is giving marks, so he is converting qualitative data into quantitative. So if you have a qualitative data, but you can convert it into quantitative, which can be analyzed with the help of a statistical technique, then hypothesis can be tested and you must formulate the hypothesis. I hope you have understood now. So hypothesis cannot be formulated where the data are qualitative. It cannot be formulated in philosophical research, historical research, descriptive survey research, and case study research. Now, this is a very important information, so you should note it down. Now, hypothesis should be formulated only in case of, so hypothesis can be formulated in case of correlated survey research and experimental research. So this is important. So that means if you are conducting a correlational survey or experimental research, then you have to have hypothesis. But if you are not conducting this, then you need not to have a hypothesis. That means the formulation of hypothesis is not the step in all types of the research. I hope you have understood it. So in the hypothesis, so I have already given the definition. Any question you want to ask regarding the definition and in which type of research the hypothesis should be formulated? Any question you want to ask? If no question, then I proceed further. Since I have said that hypothesis is the intelligent guess, since it is an intelligent guess, so there must be some basis of formulating the hypothesis. So I will be telling you the basis. Then another is the types of hypothesis. Can you tell me how many types of hypotheses you know? Petro, I will tell you correlational, nothing to worry. In historical research, Gaurav, in historical research, you do not have the quantitative information. And without quantitative information, you cannot analyze the data with the help of a statistical technique. So in historical research, you cannot have hypothesis. It is very clear. No, Divya, I will not answer. You have to think of. I have already answered this question. Divya, you might have joined late. I have already answered that you have to first select the variable, and without selecting the variable, you cannot write the title, because in the title, the name of the variable must appear. So if you have to write the name of the variable in the title, then it is important that you should first select the title, select the variable. So you have to select the variable, then write the title. And your title is narrow, because for one particular title, you may have 5 objectives, you may have 6 objectives, 10 objectives, whatever it is. So your title must be narrow. If it is not narrow, then Divya, you cannot have 5 objectives or 6 objectives. And your objectives must be pinpointed. So this is the sequence in which all these three must appear. Mamta, it depends upon how many objectives you have. I will take the example and then we'll explain you. Nothing to worry. Dr. Petro, I hope you were present yesterday when I was talking about the types of researches. And in the types of researches, I told you that if you have methodology as a base, then your research can be philosophical, historical, and survey research. And in survey research, there can be exploratory survey, there can be descriptive survey, and there can be correlational survey. And I did explain that. I hope you were present at that point of time. Yes, Dona Datta, what is the question? Please ask the question. Dona. Mr. Dona Datta, what is the question? Ask the question. Now I asked you how many types of hypotheses you know. Can you name the types of hypotheses? Dona, as I proceed further, I will explain you why we formulate hypotheses in the null form. I have not started giving you the details. So do not worry about it. No, my dear friends, there are three types of hypotheses. One is called research hypothesis. Another is called statistical hypothesis. And another is called operational hypothesis. Now, these are the three types of hypotheses. And if you talk of the forms of hypothesis, there are two forms of hypothesis. One is called null form, which is denoted by H0. And another is called directional form, or alternative form. And it is denoted by H1. So these are the forms of hypothesis, and in many books, they have given under the types of hypothesis, which is technically wrong. So my dear friends, many Indian writers have given and are giving wrong information to you people. And maybe your teacher might also have given the same information which is available in the books and which is wrong. So when we talk of null or directional, these are the forms of hypothesis. Now, it is up to you whether you want to formulate research hypothesis, statistical hypothesis, or operational hypothesis. It is the sweet will of the researcher. There is no base to decide which type of hypothesis to formulate. But you cannot formulate hypothesis as per your wish, null form or directional form. In order to decide whether the hypothesis should be formulated in the null form or in the directional form, there are bases. And when I take the hypothesis in detail, then I will be talking about the basis, and I will say if this is the base, then your hypothesis should be in the null form, and if this is the base, then your hypothesis should be in the directional form. Then next you should know the wording. Can you tell me in which tense the hypothesis should be worded? In which tense the hypothesis should be worded? It is wrong. Hypothesis cannot be worded in the future tense because there are bases of formulating the hypothesis. And when there is a base or there are bases, then it has to be formulated in the present tense. So you cannot formulate hypothesis in the future tense. You have to formulate it in the present tense. And when you are writing the hypothesis, then you must use the word significance. Then you will be testing the hypothesis. And when you want to test the hypothesis, then you must know two things: degree of freedom and level of significance. These are the two important concepts which you must know. And then you should know one tail test and two tail test. I will explain you when to use one tail test and when to use two tail test. Rafi, if your teacher has asked, please ask him what is the base, what is the logic. Ask him. So one tail and two tail test. And finally, you should know the type 1 error and type 2 error. This much you should understand as far as the hypothesis is concerned. Now, those researches where you do not have the hypothesis, then the second step will be the data collection. But wherever formulation of hypothesis is the second step, then the third step will be data collection. So therefore, in the data collection, if you are doing the philosophical research, please listen carefully. if you are doing philosophical research, then you have to collect the data by using the primary source. I repeat, if you are doing a philosophical research, then you have to collect the data by using the primary source. Say, for example, if you are studying the educational thoughts of Mahatma Gandhi, then you have to read the books written by Mahatma Gandhi only. You cannot read the book written by somebody else, and in that book, he or she has given about the ideas of Mahatma Gandhi. No, that is not correct. So in philosophical research, you have to use the primary source only. Now, in the historical research, you should use the primary source, or you may collect the information from the secondary source. So primary and secondary sources you are using for philosophical primary and historical primary as well as the secondary. But if you are conducting a survey research, my dear friend, I cannot help you. If you cannot, screen is not visible, then you check yours. Let me again do it. Dona Datta, are you able to see the screen? Okay. So therefore, if you are conducting the survey research, experimental research, or case study research, then in that case, you must know something about the sample. And if I have to talk about the sample, you should know about the universe. You must know about the population. You must know about the sample. You must know about the frame. You must know about the sampling technique. And these sampling techniques are broadly classified under two. One is called probability sampling technique, and the probability sampling technique, they are known as random sampling, another is called systematic sampling, and another is called stratified random sampling technique, or another can be stratified proportionate random sampling technique, and another is called cluster sampling, and another is called multi-stage sampling, and these are the probability sampling technique. Then next is non-probability sampling technique. And the non-probability sampling technique, I should say techniques, not technique. Techniques are one is called purposive sampling technique. Another is called judgment sampling technique. And another is called incidental sampling technique. And another is called quota sampling technique. And another is called snowball sampling technique. Now you must understand why such a classification, why purposive sampling technique does not come under probability sampling technique, why cluster sampling technique is not the part of the non-probability sampling technique. So you must understand these important things. Now, once you have understood, then I will be telling you about the size of sample. Determining the size of the sample. Determining size of the sample. Then I will be telling you why the sample size is less than 30 is called small sample, and when it is more than 30, why it is called a large sample. Gaurav, let me proceed. When I come to this particular point, I will explain you. Do not worry about it. That is why I asked you, do you want that I should give you the detail of the first step? But you people said that you give us the detail of all the steps. Please check your own device. And then I will tell you the difference between standard error and standard deviation. This much I will be telling you about the sample. Then next I will be talking about the tools. In social science, we use the word tool, but in pure science, they use the word instrument. So I will be talking about the characteristics. The characteristics of tool. Then I will be telling you the difference between measurement and assessment. And then I will tell you the difference between standardized and unstandardized tool. Then I'll tell you the steps of development of tool, steps of development and standardization of tool. And I will be talking about the norms. And then I will talk about the methods of research. I will not be talking about the philosophical method because there is nothing to talk about it. Then it is a historical method. And in that, if I have time, I will talk about it. Otherwise, you can read from the books. I will be talking about the experimental method. So this is what will be under the data collection. Now, once you have collected the data, then is the data analysis. Now, if you have the qualitative data, then you can analyze it with the help of content analysis, another is called meta-analysis, and another is called SWOT analysis. SWOT means strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat. So you should know about that. Now, if you have quantitative data, then of course, you must know that it can be analyzed with the help of the statistical technique. And your statistical techniques are parametric statistical techniques, as well as the non-parametric statistical technique. This I will not be giving in detail here because in another webinar, I will be talking about it in detail. And the last step is conclusion, or you can say finding. So these are the steps of research in nutshell. Now I'm going to take the first step of the research in detail. And then you can start asking me question after that, because now I am giving you the detailed information. So my first step is identification of problem. Now, I have already given you the difference between selection and identification. Now, in this one, as a researcher, you have to select the variable. So let us see. Variable. So variable refers to changeable characteristics. If the characteristics changes, then only then it will be a variable, otherwise it will not be a variable. I'll give you example. Gender, types of school, methods of teaching, number of pages in books, languages, caste, religion, residential background, so residential background, achievement, achievement in any subject, study habit, job satisfaction, reading comprehension, stress, self-confidence, social problem, educational problems, power of lens, speed, cost of any material, colors. Should I give more examples of variable or these are enough? Working hours, working days. Do you want more examples or these are enough? I do not know whether your teacher gave so many examples or not. Did your teacher give so many examples when he was talking about the variables? So he should have given. See, as a teacher, it is important that we should give examples which are not in the books. And we should give examples related to daily life. Okay. So these are the examples of variable. Then another is constant. Constant refers to unchangeable characteristics. The characteristics which cannot change will be called constant. Example. Number of days in a week. How many days in a week? You ask anyone everyone will say the same thing. If you ask, how many seconds in 1 minute, everyone will say the same thing. Sum of three angles of a triangle. Everyone will say the same thing. Everyone will say the same thing. Say total hours in day and night. Everyone will say the same thing. The value of pi. Everyone will say it is 22/7. So like this, there are many characteristics which are constant. They do not change at all. Now then another is a variable may be held constant, but a constant cannot be made variable. A variable may be held constant, but a constant cannot be made variable. This is important, my dear friend. If you have gender, so gender is a variable, and if you say that it is the girls' school, if you say girls' school, that means in that school only girls can be admitted, the boys cannot be admitted. So you have gender held constant, because the nature of gender is variable, but if you want, you can hold it constant. Now at present, my medium of teaching is English, but medium of teaching or medium of instruction can be Hindi, can be English, can be Gujarati, can be Marathi, can be Tamil, can be anything. So medium of instruction is a variable, but if you teach only in English, then it is being held constant. Okay, now I'm teaching you the research methodology. So the subject is being held constant. I'm not teaching you sociology, not teaching you economics, not teaching you psychology, not teaching you management, not teaching you physics, not teaching you chemistry. I'm only teaching you research methodology. So the subject is being held constant. I hope you have understood. Should I give you more example to explain this thing, or is it clear? Types of school is a variable, but if you say government school, then it will be a constant. So you are keeping this as a constant. Now, next I go to the how many types of variable. Can any one of you tell me the types of variable? How many types of variable do you know? Name, Rawat, name. Give the names of the types of variable. Yes, some of you have given the correct answer, but majority of you have given the wrong answer. There are two types of variable. One variable is called continuous, and another variable is called discontinuous. Or you can say discrete. So these are the two types of variable which are everywhere in all subjects, whether it is physics, chemistry, mathematics, geography, education, psychology, medical science, music, dance, painting, whatever is the subject. In all subjects, either your variable is a continuous variable or it is a discontinuous variable. And you can use the name continuous variable and discontinuous variable in all types of researches. In philosophical research, you do have the discontinuous variable. In historical research, you have discontinuous as well as continuous variable. Survey research, continuous and discontinuous variable. Experimental, continuous and discontinuous variable. And case study research, continuous and discontinuous. So these are the variables which you can use in any type of research. So continuous variables are those which can be expressed both in whole number as well as in fraction. So that is I'll give you example. Your weight, your height, your achievement, your power of lens, your intensity of red color, cost of anything, reasoning, reaction towards online teaching. Reading comprehension, head circumference, temperature, concentration. Do you want some more examples or these are enough? Datta, please take care of your device. Please check your device. So do you need some more example or these are enough? Duration of duty. Or duration of working hours. Or you can say working hours. So like this. Now, discontinuous variables are those which can be expressed only in the whole number. Example, gender, languages, methods of teaching, types of school, types of college, caste, marital status, number of books in libraries, number of pages in books, that number of words per line, types of vegetable, types of car, subjects. Do you want more example or is it all right? Do you want more examples or is it all right? Types of item. Types of examination. So like this, you will find that there are many variables which are continuous and some variables which are discontinuous. Now you should understand this. Now continuous variable can be made discontinuous, but a discontinuous variable cannot be made continuous. Example, you have achievement. You say pass or fail. You have first division, second division, third division, and fail. You have temperature. It can be high, normal, and low. Blood pressure. It can be high, normal, and low. So like this, you can have the continuous variable, and you can, if one, can convert it into the discontinuous variable, but the basic nature of the variable cannot be changed. So although continuous variable can be made, but the basic nature of the variable cannot be changed. If your variable is continuous, it will be continuous. If your variable is discrete, it will be discrete. But if it is a continuous variable, then you can temporarily make it discontinuous. This is perfectly correct. Now, any question you want to ask here? Any question you want to ask here? Then only in experimental research, the variables are one is called independent variable, or it is also called treatment. Then another is dependent variable. Let me give one example. Suppose you have quality of food and you have your health. Now you know the changes in the health depend on the changes in the quality of food, or by changing the quality of the food, you can bring change in the health. So quality of food becomes independent variable and health becomes a dependent variable. Now you see monthly income and you see your quality of food. Now your quality of food will depend on your monthly income. If your monthly income is quite high, your quality of food will be very good. If you do not earn much, your quality of food will be normal or below normal. So in monthly income is independent and quality of food will be the dependent. Now in the first example, the quality of food is independent, and in the second example, the quality of food becomes dependent. What is the meaning? The meaning is no variable forever is dependent or independent. Let me write. No variable forever is independent. No variable forever is dependent or independent. The situation decides which variable is dependent and independent. So the situation decides the dependent and independent variable. Which variable is dependent and which variable is independent. Now I'll give you one example. When you were students, no, Vinay, it is a wrong one. Achievement and marks are the same. Your achievement is expressed in terms of marks. So this is not a correct example. It's a wrong example you are giving. I'll give you example. Say when you were small and in the school, then you dependent on your parents. Your parents were independent and you were dependent. Now when you started earning and your parents became old and retired, then your parents now depend on you. So once upon a time, your parents were independent, and at some other point of time, now your parents are dependent. Now today, you might be independent, but after some time, you will depend on your children. So it is a cycle which keeps on going. So therefore, you can never say that this variable forever will be dependent and this variable forever will be independent. Now let me give you another example. Say your methods of teaching. And your understanding. Now, you know, the understanding of students depend on the methods of teaching used by the teacher. So it is an independent variable and your understanding becomes a dependent variable. But your understanding does not entirely depend on the methods of teaching. It also depends on your previous knowledge. It depends on your concentration. It depends on your study habit. It depends on your expression power. It depends upon your vocabulary. It depends on your reasoning. So like this, that means the understanding of the student may change due to the methods of teaching used by the teacher, but it may also change because of their previous knowledge, the concentration, the study habit, the expression power, the vocabulary, the adjustment, etc., etc. There are many variables. And some of these variables are in the process and some variables are outside the process. And these variables are called intervening variables. So there is another type of variable which is called intervening variable. So intervening variables are those which are in the process, and outside the process, but bring change in the dependent variable in the presence of independent variable. For example, right at the moment when you are listening to me, if there are children who are playing in the same room where you are sitting and listening, then quite possible sometime you might miss some of my sentences. And because of that, you may not be able to understand what I'm saying. So the presence of the children or the noise created by their playing becomes an intervening variable. And it is outside the process. Now you are sitting, and if you are tired, then you might not be able to concentrate and might miss some of my sentences. So your tiredness is in the process. The place where you are sitting, if you are uncomfortable, then you may again miss. So it is the intervening variable and it is in the process. So those intervening variables which are in the process are called intrinsic. Intrinsic intervening variables which are inside the process, and another is called extrinsic intervening variables which are outside the process, and these are also called confounding variables. Now, there is another type of variable which is called concomitant variable. My dear friend, all of you do not have the same height. So height is a variable. Height of participants is a variable. But you are not understanding according to your height. So height is a variable and it is in the process, but do not bring change in the dependent variable in the presence of independent variable are called concomitant variables. Your skin color is a concomitant variable. The dress which you have put on is a concomitant variable. Your weight is a concomitant variable. So there are many concomitant variables. The type of computer which you are using is a concomitant variable. So concomitant variables are those which are in the process but do not bring change in the dependent variable, do not bring change in the dependent variable in the presence of independent variable. Now, independent variable and dependent variable and intervening variable, you have to use them whenever you are conducting an experimental study. If you are not conducting an experimental study, you cannot use the word independent and dependent. But if you are conducting a survey research, in survey research, there might be intervening variables. It can happen. But in experimental research, there will be intervening variables. Say, during pandemic, the people were advised to put mask. Why? Because intervening variable. There are viruses in the air. If you do not put mask, then they may enter in your body and may create a lot of problems. Whenever there is a dust, we do put our mask so that it doesn't go inside our body and it doesn't adversely affect us. So we can control the intervening variables, but all intervening variables can never be controlled. This is important point. Now, your independent variable or your treatment is always discontinuous variable. And your dependent variable will always be continuous variable. So, and your intervening variable will be continuous as well as discontinuous. And your concomitant variable will be continuous as well as discontinuous. So these are the relationships between the continuous and discontinuous variable on one hand, independent variable, dependent variable, intervening variable, and concomitant variable on another hand. Yes, Narayan Singh, it is correct. Lack of healthcare facility can be an independent variable, it can be an intervening variable. You are right. So now these are the types of variable. I once again request you, please, if you are not conducting an experimental research, then you should not use the word dependent variable and independent variable. But if your guide insists, please listen, if your guide insists that you should write the word independent and dependent, please write. Because if your guide does not understand, you can't teach him. So you have to obey your guide, and that is what is more important. So now I hope you have understood. Now I am giving you some questions for your reflection and for your thinking. And the questions are like this. The fourth question is that for a variable, what should be the value of standard deviation? What should be the minimum? What should be the minimum value of standard deviation? Because you will have the quantitative data for the variable and you will have a qualitative data. But if you have the quantitative data, then you can calculate the standard deviation, and then you must know for a variable what should be the minimum value of standard deviation. The another question is that can the value of standard deviation be negative? Because when you calculate a standard deviation, there is a square root. And whenever there is a square root, there will be two values, one positive, other negative. And next question is that can standard deviation value be greater than mean? Now, these are the additional questions, and based on the today's lecture, so please try to reflect on these and let us see whether you are able to get the correct answer or not. You can search your website, no problem. You can ask your teacher, no problem. You can discuss among yourself, no problem. But try to bring answers to the question. Now, any question you want to ask before I say bye-bye to you? Sustainability is a variable. Divya, sustainability is a variable. But when you write your objective and title, then you will decide And how will you sustainability, how will you assess? It is the tool which will decide whether it is a continuous variable or it is a discontinuous variable. But sustainability is a variable. It's very, very difficult. You cannot have all variables in one. You cannot, because dependent, independent are only in experimental research. I have already explained you. In the experimental research, I have given you. Please see, here I have said this is independent variable. I have said this is the dependent variable. And these are the intervening variables. I have given one example and I have explained you. These are the dependent, independent, and intervening. And your methods of teaching is a discontinuous variable, understanding is a continuous variable, and your intervening variables, some are continuous and some are discontinuous. So I have already given you. Okay, any other question you want to ask? Then I'm saying bye-bye to you. Divya, do not jump. Let me come to the how to write objective, then you will ask me the question. No, Gaurav, there are survey research, there is a case study research, there are historical research, there are philosophical research. I have already given you. They are the same. Extraneous variable and confounding variables are same. All right. So thank you very much for joining and see you tomorrow. Stay safe, keep learning.